Hey guys, this is Shane here from Echo Soundworks, and in this video, I'm going to show you a few different techniques and methods you can use to make any MIDI or software instrument piano sound more authentic and realistic. So the hope is the more authentic and realistic it sounds in certain cases, in certain instances, the more it will connect in an emotional and meaningful way with your listeners. So I did a video like this a while back covering guitar. I'll put the link to that down in the description. And admittedly, making a software or VST guitar sound like the real thing is more of a pain in the ass than doing it with a piano. So I wanted to do this video because I've seen a couple other videos covering this topic, and they basically just cover velocity, things that are pretty basic and I think commonplace. So let's cut the intro short and get going. All right, so the first step in getting an authentic and realistic sounding piano is to make sure you're using a piano that can sound like that. There's a lot out there that can't, and sometimes that's because they're just cheap or they're bad samples, but other times it's a function of the actual piano sample itself. For instance, you can never get a Korg M1 sample to, fit into an acoustic pop track with just a vocalist and a singer. Now here's an extreme example, but it highlights my point. So this is the grand piano from Arturia's emulator plugin. Now the emulator was a sampler from the early 80s. Now this entire piano is made up of 6 samples. That's it. Stretched across the whole keyboard. Let's take a quick listen. Right? No matter what you do to this thing, it will not sound super realistic, but it'd be great for certain house tracks as well as trap and hip hop. Now here's another example where we're getting a little bit better, but again, it still is paper thin. And this is where I feel like a lot of you who are watching this video, this is probably your starting point. This sounds like a basic piano that would come with a DAW. Now just know that if you get a better piano library, and there are some free ones out there, there are also obviously paid ones, and there's a huge range in prices, but if you get a better one that sounds more organic, more natural to begin with, the next steps we're going to look at in this video become more impactful. So for the remainder of this video, I'm going to be using one of our pianos. It's the Loft piano. When we made this, we wanted to make something that was part kind of a hybrid between a studio sounding piano, which is kind of clean and sterile, and a character piano. So I have 3 MIDI regions here. I have meh, getting better, and best. We're going to kind of work through these. So here is the meh version of the MIDI. Now this would be like if you just penciled in a bunch of chords and some melody, and it's all the same velocity. It's very robotic. It sounds like this. Right, so step 2 in getting a realistic and authentic sounding piano is going to be making it more human. When you just pencil things in your DAW, whether you're using Ableton, Logic, FL Studio, you need to then go through and start to humanize it if you want that really authentic feel, because there's no way you could play this. Like, you just can't. It's too perfect. All the chords end right at the end of the bar. They all start right at the start of the bar. A lot of the melody notes are the same duration, and they're just, the same length. Again, I was using a pencil tool. So we're going to go through and we're going to try to make this a little bit more organic. Now, I've already done that in these other steps, but I'm going to do a couple of them here on screen. So the first thing would be to make sure it's not all the same velocity. And this is what a lot of the other videos I mentioned talk about. But what they don't talk about is the importance of velocity as it relates to your melody. You don't want to just go through and randomize different notes and different parts of chords. You want it to actually be consistent with the theme of your melodies. Right, now it's starting to get a little bit more human. Let's go through the chords and just start to randomize some of these just a little. Just because if you're playing keys, it's very, very hard to get all of them to be the exact same velocity. Now, some DAWs do have a randomized feature, but this isn't that long of a clip of MIDI, so I can just do it by hand. All right, so step 3 is going to be to make it less robotic in terms of timing. So for instance, if you were to play this, it'd be very, very difficult to get every chord to start right at the beginning of the bar and end right at the end of the bar if they're taking up an entire bar. So I'm just going to go through here, and I can do this manually. I can go through and change the length, or I can use a feature in Logic, and a lot of DAWs have something like this. I can humanize it. So we're going to humanize it right now. I generally don't want this number for random higher than if your Logic keys are higher than about 3 to 5. I just want a little variance. So I'm going to hit select only and then hit select and operate. Now, it's not going to look like anything changed, but if I go into the actual MIDI, we'll notice that some of the notes are literally just a little bit off grid, right? Like this one starts right before it. And yeah, if we double back here, you can see that they don't all start right at the downbeat, right? And now it sounds like this. So this next technique does not work with every type of track or every style of playing, but it is something that I wanted to point out. Logic calls it Q-Flam. Other DAWs will call it Strum. You can load up the Strum tool in FL Studio and pull this off in Ableton. There's a few different ways to do it as well. But basically, maybe some chords don't all start with a block of notes all happening at once, right? Maybe some of them actually happen kind of like in a strum pattern. And again, this won't always work with every MIDI, with every chord progression, but it does work sometimes. So we could try it on this first one, actually. It'd make more sense to do on the first one. So all you do is if you're using Logic, you can use the Q-Flam. And I don't like using the Q-Flam because it applies it to the entire clip. I'd rather just do it manually. But what you can do is you just go into the actual MIDI, zoom in, and you're going to create like a little strum. Like think about like a guitarist fretting a 6-note chord. If they're strumming from the lowest note, they're going to hit the lowest note, and then it's going to, progress over time to hit the higher notes. This is kind of what we're trying to do right now. Now you can make this super pronounced. You can make it super subtle. I'm going to go for pretty subtle. Let's do a little bit more so we can hear it. All right, so the next technique is going to be to introduce some actual elements of how a piano player would actually play things. It's very rare to just have when you're playing keys, to just do like a block chord like this. It is something that you do, obviously, but it's not something that you do often. It might just be in a certain part of a song where the energy dies down. So if you're thinking about it from the perspective of an actual key player, a lot of key players will do this kind of walk up and down the bass as they're playing. So instead of just going like this, right, my left hand is just playing that chord. Right, and that makes it sound more authentic and realistic. It's kind of like when you're working with a guitar VST or plugin, adding on a hammer on, a slide, or a bend or something like that. Just something that guitarists would actually do. So with the best version of the MIDI here, I actually did that. I actually played this in. I didn't pencil it in, and you'll notice that there's this kind of walking arp pattern that we get. All right, so keeping in line with some things we can do from a playing perspective to spice things up, make it sound more realistic, a lot of key players, they won't just play, boring basic things. They want to add little kind of sprinkles or flares, little moments of flair to the actual playing. So this section right here in the MIDI that we worked through a few minutes ago, right going in between bars 2 and 3 is empty. Now in this version, I have this 2-note pickup, and it is a really cool technique you can use to turn around into another chord. And it's just a simple 2-note hit transition, and it's not on grid. It's a little bit loose. All right, so now for a couple bonus tips and tricks to end the video. So depending on the piano plugin or library that you're using, you might have the option to go in and kind of tweak the DNA of the piano. So you can go in and turn things up like hammer noise, key noise, random things that make this piano sound more natural and organic. So in the Loft piano, we have, for this whole video, we had the hammer control as well as the key noise up quite high. The hammers are the hammers actually striking the strings, and the key noise is the actual physical keys being pushed. Now, some pianos also give you the ability to turn on and off a foot pedal sound. So if I crank this way up, you can hear that the foot pedal is pressed and it engages the strings in the damper. So all those things do add up in the course of a mix or in the context of a song. All right, so that's going to sum up this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can post those below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you guys aren't subscribed to our channel, you know the drill. Hit that subscribe button. The support really does mean a lot to us. And if you guys haven't ever checked out our website, echosoundworks.com, definitely head on over there. There's a ton of free content, samples, loops, and presets. And of course, there's some premium sound sets and sample packs as well. And lastly, if you guys use Instagram, consider giving us a follow. We run a lot of contests, giveaways, and promotions on that platform. And I think you guys will like what we're doing over there. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.